So after the game being announced for over a week and seeing more and more footage, I think I can finally give my first impressions on Crash Bandicoot 4. It's about time. Let's talk about it.
Whoa!
What's up guys, Canadian Guy here, and back with a video that probably is about over a week late. There's been so much to cover in terms of content for Crash Bandicoot 4, and I'm just trying my best to keep up, but I suppose better late than never, right? Anyway, let's get to it. Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time is a long overdue new entry into the Crash Bandicoot franchise. The last game that came out in 2008 was Crash Bandicoot Mind Over Mutant, while Crash the Titans, the game that came beforehand, received relatively decent reviews. Mind Over Mutant received really mixed reviews overall, and unfortunately would be the final game that we would see in a very long time. However, in 2017, we got the remasters of Crash Bandicoot's original trilogy, and in 2019, we got a remaster of its racing spin-off, Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. Now, in 2020, we are finally seeing the Bandicoot come back in a new light with a new look, which is the first thing I want to talk about. The new Crash, to me, looks amazing. I know, to some it's controversial, but I love it. His new model and his new rig will allow animators to be able to really have a lot of fun with much more expressions with the model. When I interviewed Paul Yan, they said that they wanted to go back to what Naughty Dog used as a reference back when they developed the original trilogy, which actually, funny enough, was Looney Tunes. So they made sure that they were able to get a model to be able to get the same kind of inspired look that Naughty Dog would have wanted, but not held back by technical limitations like the original Crash trilogy was. Also, the soft gradient coloring and shading has become a staple now in the Crash and Spyro games, and it's something that I absolutely love. This style was basically introduced in Spyro Reignited trilogy and was very different from the original trilogy. However, I had admired Toys for Bob and admired Spyro Reignited for taking a leap of faith and doing something completely different. While the Insane Trilogy was fantastic, it was a textbook remake in terms of design and aesthetic. When you looked at something, you were able to recognize it right away and knew what it was in terms of the original games. Toys for Bob, on the other hand, took much more creative liberty with Spyro Reignited, which was very risky, but the payoff was absolutely fantastic, yielding one of my most personal favorite games of all time. To see Toys for Bob, the same studio that took that risk and took that leap of faith with Spyro, is doing that same leap with Crash, and it's exciting from what I've seen so far. And honestly, I think they've nailed it. That soft gradient look, however, has also expanded into the level design and aesthetic, which is the next thing I wanted to talk about. The environments that we have seen so far are nothing short of breathtaking. I mean, look at some of these screenshots here that we got from launch. I mean, take a look at this ghost ship. This image literally looks like it's not from a game. So far, we have seen a lot of stuff, from a beautiful pirate beach to a frozen fisherman's grotto to even a spaceship and a post-apocalyptic wasteland. But that's only what we've seen thus far. There's even more in store. I mean, take a look in the trailer. Look at this gigantic Japanese temple with these dragons surrounding it. Look at these turtles in this giant coral forest that are flying. It just absolutely looks insane. Now, even though the game follows a more typical way of playing Crash, which is more linear, Toys for Bob has found a way to make the game feel so much more open, yet still focusing on a denseness of action. Now, the biggest aspect I want to talk about in today's video is the gameplay, because you could have beautiful models, beautiful looking levels, but if the gameplay is bad, it's going to be kind of hard to want to play the actual game. Now, like I said before, Toys for Bob has backed away from the more open world and beat 'em up concept that was introduced in Twinsanity and Crash the Titans, going back to Crash's more rhythmic platforming roots. In an interview between Jeff Keighley and Paul Yan during the announcement of Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time, Paul Yan said that there is a certain rhythm and a flow that's to Crash Bandicoot, and as you're playing it, and if you know the level like the back of your hand, it should be rhythmic and be able to flow through the entire level in such a flow state. But as well as making sure that they have that rhythmic feelings, this time they're altering and adding brand new mechanics and techniques that is focused on platforming. The basic platforming that we know and love is back with your jumps, spins, slide, and belly bashes. Now I noticed that the jump arc for Crash seems a lot better than it was in the Insane trilogy, which is really nice to see. Crash seems fast, snappy, and seems to be able to turn on a dime, which is important for platformers. There is one thing I am concerned about that I have seen from the footage, and that is the double jump. It seems a little bit floaty, almost getting Wrath of Cortex vibes, which I'm not a fan of. It seems like Crash is coming down pretty hard in terms of momentum, and then the double jump is just makes him look like he's light as a feather all of a sudden. Of course, I am still unsure because obviously I haven't been able to get my hands on the game yet, as of yet, and get a feeling of how it plays, which I hope to do so soon. So I can't be 100% sure on this critique, but this also might change later on. Now the brand new mechanics that are being introduced, like the rail grinding, is such a refreshing thing to see to come to the franchise. While other games, yes, have done it before, like Sonic and Ratchet & Clank, seeing this mechanic being used with Crash's moveset is pretty awesome. Also, in turn, being able to switch between rail grinding and ziplining makes it unique and adds another layer of playability. The masks are also introducing more platforming elements, like slowing down time and switching the flow of gravity for the user, which is all great and fun, but I think there is something to be said here about the game and its new gameplay. Toys for Bob isn't exactly reinventing the wheel when it comes to Crash Bandicoot. They have an understanding of what works and what doesn't. They're looking at what made Crash Bandicoot, well, Crash Bandicoot, and what's made him to turn into this giant celebrity and is known worldwide. I mean, the original trilogy was absolutely amazing, and all they're doing is simply fleshing it out and adding additional gameplay elements that complements that original gameplay. Nothing completely different is being shoehorned in. Nothing odd is being added to quote-unquote freshen up the game. They are focusing on what made the originals so great, then they are focusing on what they can do to flesh those original controls out and how to please the fans. Now the story is actually a really interesting concept as well for this game. The whole idea of there being a multiverse within the Crash Bandicoot franchise really does open the games up to so many possibilities. It's actually crazy. Toys for Bob likely wrote the story this way to be able to include references and ideas from previous Crash games, as well as allow them to branch out with, well, as much creative freedom as they want. I really like this idea of there being a multiverse, and I hope that it becomes a staple to the entire franchise. My thoughts overall so far have been overwhelmingly positive for Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time. The graphics, the redesigns, the level designs, and the mechanics thus far all look fantastic. The only thing I can note so far that I am saying that I'm not the biggest fan of, just by visual sight, not controls, I haven't been able to feel it yet, is the double jump. But of course, any sort of critiques that I have or the fan base has can be found and fixed over the coming months, leading up to October 2nd, 2020, which is when the game will launch. Be sure to be subscribed, as I will be covering this game as much as I physically can. A huge thank you to all those who support the channel through Patreon and being a sponsor on the channel. If you'd like to help it out, check out the links in the description below, where you can buy some CGE merch or become a Patreon. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe for more gaming and nostalgic content. Thank you so much everyone, and I'll see you guys in the next video.